So often we are approached far too late on in the day when the partners have actually handed their contract back to NHS England. They've breathed a huge sigh of relief and they think that that's it. They've done all they need to do and the NHS will step in and help them out with regard to all the other practice liabilities. In fact, that's not the case. Before you hand your contract back, even if that turns out to be the right answer for your particular practice, you have to give really careful consideration to the other practice liabilities. So typically those are, the NHS contract is only one of the practice assets. You have to think about the premises. If you're in leasehold premises, what's the term of the lease? Will the landlord let you break the lease? Is there a break clause in your lease at all? And if you hand your contract back in, you can find yourself having terminated your contract, the income for the building has dried up, but the landlord is still expecting the rent. So before you hand the contract back in, you must check the lease to see whether or not you are still going to be on the hook for the lease or what can be done about bringing the lease to an end. If you're in a freehold building, you have to check the terms of your mortgage. It might be a condition of your mortgage that you are a GP entitled to receipt of rent reimbursement. So by having terminated your contract and closed your practice down, you might find yourself in breach of your mortgage conditions and being served with a redemption penalty by the bank. Staff redundancies are also an issue. If you close your practice down and you haven't consulted with the staff, there are strict liability fines for failing to consult. You can also, if the contract is not taken over or re-tendered and taken over, you can find yourself with some very significant staff redundancy liabilities, particularly the NHS redundancy regulations can involve you paying the staff, some certain members of staff, back to their very first working day in the National Health Service, even though they might have only just started working with you recently in your practice. One option is handing your contract back in. There are other alternatives. Other alternatives involve merging to gain scale and spread the risk, taking on new partners. If you can find new partners, perhaps former partners, you might have insisted they bought into the surgery building, but you might think about bringing them in, but letting them come in but not buy into the building. Disposing of the practice to a third-party provider. And at all times we would recommend that you work with the CCG and NHS England and perhaps your local medical committee to see if there are other alternative solutions around. We've had practices who have merged and then demerged in order to avoid a practice closure, and there are some very creative solutions out there. Handing your contract back in is not an option to be entered into lightly, and you should take accountancy and legal advice before doing so.